Okay, so I want to call the Thursday, September 10th, 2020 teleconference board meeting to order. And then, is that all I need to do?
So we want to notate the time you're calling into order, and then you would want to.
Thursday, it's 10:12 a.m. I just said that, September 10th, 2020.
Great, and we're bringing the Osteopathic Medical Board meeting to order at 10:12 on the 10th of December. This is being held via WebEx, and no physical locations are indicated on the agenda due to the governor's order as stated in the agenda. And then Machiko can do a roll call, an establishment of quorum.
All right, Gora Damian. Or, you have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Here.
Okay. Dr. Buhari.
Here.
Andrew Marino.
Here.
Dr. Jensen.
Here.
Claudia Mercado.
Here.
Cheryl Williams.
Here.
Dr. Patel.
Here.
You have a quorum.
So, we want to, first, before we get started, I want to thank the Midwestern students for joining us today. And then we will go with the approval, correct? The agenda from our last meeting. And excuse me, because I'm just getting back in the house. So, public comment. Oh, establishment. Okay. So public comment items not on the agenda for today. Approval of minutes. May 7th. Was that the last meeting we had?
Okay. This is Sabina.
Okay.
Can I interrupt real quick? Sorry. I know you probably can't see me if you're on your phone. So we're going to take public comments for items not on the agenda, first from board members and then followed by any public present. And just a reminder, public present do not have to introduce themselves, but it would be great for our record and minutes if you do choose to make a public comment, that you do identify yourself and or what organization you're representing.
I did want to bring up an issue. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I was approached by somebody that had some issues with their license. Is it okay to kind of talk about this now? It's nothing that that needs to be acted on, but it's a possible agenda item for the future. So is this an appropriate time to bring it up?
If it's a general, we can't talk about specifics. But if it's a general question or concern or something maybe that you want to bring up and see if Mark wants to talk about it offline or get that person help if there's some clarification needed or anything like that, or if it's something that you guys want to find out more about the licensing process at a future board meeting, absolutely. I just caution you not to, we're not going to talk about specific cases.
So it's nothing specific, but more of a general concern I had was that I just wanted to clarify about the relicensing process and CME required. There was a little bit of confusion. I mean, I myself thought that we could use CME right before the expiration date of our license, but this person received a letter saying that it needed to be done 2 calendar years before. So, for example, if somebody's license expired April 2020, the CME would only count 2018 and 2019, but I thought it would be easier or more, efficient for everybody if there was, clarity in being able to use CME right before the expiration date. So that was just, something I wanted to clarify and then also kind of comment on.
Okay, so great. So since this is an item not on the agenda, the board can't really engage in a discussion because it's not agendized. What we would suggest to anybody who has licensing questions would be to contact licensing directly, and the staff would be able to take care of it. There are some weird waivers in place right now, and so there's a lot of different things in motion. The board also potentially can review maybe their frequently asked questions documents on their website or something to make sure something like this is addressed when they go and kind of look at those things to make sure that information is out there for the public. But for our purposes right now, the board staff has heard that comment, and because it's not agendized, we're not going to actually discuss it. But if anybody does have licensing questions, I would suggest contacting licensing directly with the board. But like I said, the staff has heard that, so maybe they can look into clarifying that on their website.
Can we put that on the agenda for our next meeting?
A CE discussion or?
So Sabina, it would be more, I'm not asking to help a particular person. It's more of a general question to kind of clarify, because even I'm confused. Like, I don't know if CME is accepted right before the expiration date or if it's, 2018 and 2019. I think it's something that we should put on the agenda for further discussion. That was kind of my point.
Absolutely. The staff can have written that down. I've written that down. Maybe in the meantime, we can go through the website and see if there's frequently asked questions kind of document that addresses CE questions. And maybe we can bring that back to the board next time.
Okay. Anything else?
This is Nicholas Bertzel from the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California.
Okay.
Just wanted to take a moment to thank the board and staff for continuing to work through what is a pretty difficult situation with COVID and getting everybody's licenses processed and everything. You've been a great help to us as we received contact from our members and state. So I just want to take a time to thank you guys for being able to do that in what has been a less than optimal environment.
Well, thank you for your comment. Any other comments? All right, let's review the minutes and then vote to approve. Any questions on the minutes or changes?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
I second.
All
Just
right.
to confirm, the motion was made by,
Sorry, additional.
Mari made the motion.
Mari,
sorry, second.
And this
Dr.
is
Jensen.
Jensen second.
Yeah.
And I will take a roll call. Gord Damian,
Yes. Aye.
aye. Dr. Buhari,
Yes.
Andrew Marino,
Yes.
Dr. Jensen,
Yes.
Claudia Mercado,
Yes.
Cheryl Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Patel.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. We're on 4. So the discussion and possible action to initiate rulemaking to amend board regulations impacted by AB 2138 licensing board's denial of applications, certifications, or suspensions of licensures.
Okay. It's quite a title, isn't it, Cheryl?
It is.
This is Sabina, legal counsel for the board. I'm just going to go over this real quick. It probably seems a little bit more complicated than it actually is. So this memo that you have in here kind of gives you a little bit of background. If you remember that this AB 2138 was designed to remove some obstacles for people with some convictions. And in the background part of the memo kind of talks about what AB 2138 does. And as a reminder to our new board members and maybe our seasoned board members, so when statutes go into effect, then we have regulations to draft that make specific and clarify those statutes and laws. Hold on, sorry. That peanut butter. What we're now doing is trying to get our regulations in place to implement this law. What we did, as you may or may not already know, part of the process is to have the public look at the proposed regulations. There was a 45-day comment period, and during that time, people can submit comments or suggestions about the text. So at this time today, you have some responses to some comments in front of you for consideration. And the staff's proposed responses to each of those. At the end of your memo, you have a proposed motion should the board decide to adopt those responses for the comments. I'm sure you've already all read this, so I'm not going to bore you by some kind of crazy, word for word reading of this memo or the responses or the comments, but I do want to, before you guys decide to take some comment on it or discuss anything, I want to point out an error in the memo. And so when you do your motion, you have to make sure that we include this edit on page 6, Machiko. So on comment number 5, it's on page 6 of the memo, code sections are incorrect. And I just want to make sure that you guys, when you do, should you choose to approve the minutes, keep going, approve the responses to the comments, that we do have these changes noted in the minutes of the meeting for OAL's sake.
Sorry, Sabina, should I keep going? I don't.
Yeah, keep going, sorry. Sorry, keep going. Keep going, down to comment 5.
There we go, comment 5.
All right, right there. So it says, right, proposed response, and the second tiny little paragraph has the wrong code sections, or has the wrong reg sections in there. It should be 1655 and 1657. So we want to make sure we make that adjustment in our motion, and they're in that other paragraphs, those other paragraphs as well. But I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that these comments themselves, as well as the responses, are what we are seeing from all the other boards. These are pretty standard responses. One of the tenets of regulations is we don't want duplicity. It's already in the statute. We're not going to repeat it and put it in the reg. And so that's what some of these comments are addressing, and other justifications as to why we're declining or rejecting the comment and not going to change any language based on those comments. Are there any potential questions from the board members about those responses to the comments? Are there any public comment on the responses to the comments? And pull up mine. I'm just going to pull up. Sorry if I look distracted. I'm going to pull up my PDF real quick. So if you scroll down on you should be in tab 3. Board members, if you scroll down, and I'm sure you've already read all these comments, and we have one edit to suggest to take out those 3 code sections for 4256, 4258, 4259 in those in that proposed response, change it to 1657 and 1655. And on the last page of your memo right there, there's the second to last is the word recommendation, and then it, for some reason, spilled over to the next page where the recommendation from the staff to reject the proposed comments, provide the responses to the comments as indicated in the meeting materials with the additional edits from our discussion today, and to complete the regulatory process as authorized by a previous motion at the board's May 16th meeting. Do we have any questions about that? I know it sounds kind of boring. I'm sorry.
This is Jensen. I would make a motion to approve the comments and the responses with the noted changes to comment number 5 response to correct the code sections to be changed to 1655 and 57, and otherwise make a motion to approve and post them.
Great. And then can I add to that motion and to further authorize the executive director to complete the regulatory process as authorized by a previous motion from the May 16th, 2019 meeting?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, so moved. Okay, so I have a motion.
This is Dr. Buhari. I'd second it.
And we have a second. Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Machiko, why don't you,
Take roll call.
yes, please.
Corey Damian,
Yes.
Dr. Buhari,
Yes.
Andrew Marino,
Yes.
Dr. Jensen,
Yes.
Claudia Mercado,
Yes.
Cheryl Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Patel.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Are we good?
Yes, we have.
Sorry, I thought I got disconnected. I'm
Sorry,
really sorry.
I didn't.
Everybody-
Say it out loud.
Everybody went silent and it scared me. And so I was like trying to look at my computer. I thought you all left me. All right, great. Thank you so much. We'll complete that rulemaking process as soon as humanly possible. We'll get that package ready to go with any other technical non-substantive changes that you have already authorized the executive director to make to complete the rulemaking file. All right, Cheryl, back to you. Item number, what, agenda item 4? 5?
Yeah,
4.
we're on 4, yeah. Discussing possible action to initiate full regulation.
Cheryl, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? It's past 5.
Hold and
Can you mute her? And we'll, oh,
okay.
sorry.
Again, Cheryl,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, discussion of possible action to initiate rulemaking to amend board regulations impacted by AB 2138, licensing board's denial of application. Verification, that's the same one.
Yeah, that's just what we did. Somehow I got my numbers mixed up. I thought we were on 3 when we're really on 4. So now we're on 5.
Discussion of possible action on pending legislation.
Yes.
AB 16.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Mark Uda, the Executive Director of the Board. I have a very short legislative report today. We're not following a ton of bills. There's 2 in particular I want to cover. The first one is Assembly Bill 1616. It's regarding expunged convictions. And what it was going to do is require the board to post and take off actions based on. We were following this bill because it may have increased our workload, and so it's something we like to follow. However, this bill, there's an update to this bill since the agenda came out, and this bill is dead now. So we're no longer following it at this time. So that's my update on AB 1616. The other bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 878, which has to do with applications and wait times. It requires, beginning July 1st, 2021, every board in the department that issues licenses on a quarterly basis to display on its internet website the current average timeframes for processing initial and renewal license application in a combined current average timeframe for both. So this is we're following this one. This would require us to put on our website what our timeframes are. I don't think this is a terrible idea. I think it would hold us accountable, put it out there where we're at from a timeframe perspective. And there's been an update since the agenda was done in this item. And this bill was enrolled on September 4th. It's on the governor's desk, and he has not taken action yet. But we anticipate that'll be done sometime shortly. So we are following this one, and we will comply if it goes through. So with that said, those are the two main bills I'm following, and that concludes my legislative report.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything on that.
I just have a question.
Okay.
How difficult is it to do this?
To display our timeframes on our website.
Yes.
We work concurrently with the department's information, our OIS unit over there. We work closely with them, and so I don't think it'll be too difficult to pull the numbers and put it up there. I don't think from a cost perspective or workload perspective, this is too much of a burden on us. Yeah.
Hey, Mark, it's Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Real quick, I'm not sure it matters or is really important. In the board packet, SB 275 is listed as authored by some member. It's actually Richard Pan's bill.
Okay, I will make note of that.
Can we move on to 6?
Any public comment? No? Okay, hearing no public comment. Item number 6.
That's a possible approval document for the recommendations of cannabis for medical purposes. Claudia, have you guys met?
Hi, this is Claudia, and Andrew, we're chairing the committee for this, and it doesn't look like we have the text in the packet, but kind of where we're at now, Andrew was really active in trying to get us a copy of the text in some kind of Word format where we can actually edit it. We haven't been able to do that. So I'm planning to have somebody just type it out for us so we can get in there and make some edits that are more relevant to the board right now. But I did have a question, Sabina. Have we even approved any language, or are we waiting for us to give the final text?
If my memory serves me correct, which let's hope, I thought we were waiting to hear from the subcommittee. Is that right, Andrew?
Yes, that's my understanding as well. And just to follow up with Claudia's comments, we have put together some comments. However, we wanted to present it to the board in text, and we were trying to find a copy of the proposed language that we had last time. So I think, as Claudia mentioned, we're just going to have to end up retyping it so that way we can bring it back and present it in a way that the board can actually see the changes that we've made.
Great. Have you tried converting the Adobe? Is it in Adobe form? Can you convert it to a Word? I know it's not always perfect, but at least you don't have to have someone retype it.
I've not tried that, but that's something that I think we will.
It's the med boards or FSMBs that you want to amend.
I'm sorry, Ashiko, what was that?
Is it the med boards or FSMBs that you are wanting to amend?
The medical board took the recommendations from the federal. Yeah, so
I will reach out to them. Chances are the document is locked. So I'll have to find someone to see if I can get it unlocked for you. And then you might be able to make changes that way.
And I also wanted to put out an ask. It'd be great to have a medical professional, on the subcommittee just to maybe be our soundboard, since this is going to directly impact practices. So we'd love to maybe have somebody join the subcommittee if your time permits.
And just a note, if a third person joins your subcommittee, we'll have to go ahead and notice these meetings and hold them via Zoom or WebEx or whatever as a public meeting.
Well, maybe Andrew can comment. Andrew, is that gonna? I think we've been just emailing back and forth, but does the board have any comments on that suggestion?
Are we able to work with Dr. Lally, who's, I believe, board staff? Is he somebody? I don't want to volunteer him, but he's the first person that came to mind. I don't know if he's available to kind of.
So Dr. Lally is on the call. He just cannot speak. He can hear and see. He can't speak. So let's see if I can text him. Or let's see if I can call him. Hello. Okay. Can we all hear him?
Hello?
Dr. Lally?
No, we can't hear him.
Now?
Can you hear him now? Say something, Dr.
Yeah.
Lally.
What was the question again?
They are wanting to know if you would like to join them on the subcommittee for the recommendation for the guidelines surrounding the usage of cannabis for medical purposes.
I think it's a conflict, isn't it? In the current role I'm at? Ask Mark.
Most likely, yeah. I'm not sure I would feel comfortable with Dr. Lally doing that since he is the SME. It would probably, besides a lot more for him to do, but it just is an odd thing.
Well, I mean, we can just keep it between me and Andrew, and I think if we bring it to the board, and if there's any maybe potential red flags or anybody wants to put any comments, maybe we can address those there. Is that better, Sabrina? Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, so what's going to happen is that you guys are going to come up with a recommendation for the board. That doesn't mean it's set in stone. All it means is you bring it to the board meeting, and at that time, it's agendized, and maybe you reach out and let some people know, hey, we're going to be talking about this at the meeting, if you want to chime in, or here's the, check the website for the materials. If you can attend the meeting, go ahead and submit some suggested edits or a letter ahead of time, and then we can discuss it then, and we can make edits there in the meeting, and then the board can approve it at that point.
I think that this is Jensen. I think that makes the most sense, because then you can also keep it so that you don't have to set the meetings up and have them, scheduled. You can keep doing your emails. You can keep doing whatever way works best for the two of you.
Got it. So can I ask the board to then put this in next meetings or the next board meeting agenda?
Will do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
So would this be the same as what we have today then, the discussion and possible approval guidelines?
Right. So that was just that item, and what the decision from the subcommittee is. They're going to go ahead and do a little bit more meeting and bring back a draft next time, and have some medical consultations there during the meeting next time for some input. And then, so there's no need for any motion or anything on this item. We can move on to the budget report.
Paul.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Good morning. This is Paul Mcdermott. I am the current budget analyst from the Department of Consumer Affairs. I am here today to talk about two things. That would be the expenditures and the fund condition. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for having me here today. It is nice to actually look at a budget and a fund condition that are very solid and in great condition. So the first document you see here is going to be the fund condition. And this fund condition, basically what any business has, where you want to know what the revenue's coming in and the expenditures going out. As you read from top, bottom, left to right, you'll see that I have last year's 2018, 2019, and I have the FM12 preliminary numbers closing out the fiscal year of 2019, 2020. So it does say current year, but that's where we are right now, shutting down on the end of June. So as you look up top, you start with the fund with a balance of $3.3 million, and the next section down are going to be your revenue streams from all your fees to your licenses and everything. And you'll see every revenue stream where we captured where the money came in, where the fees came in. Whoop, I lost my screen. All right, I'll go for my paper. Anyhow.
Sorry, Paul.
It's all right. When you go down through it, you'll see several lines of just how they're captured, with about $2.6 million in your revenue streams, 2.694. Right below it, you'll see a line item that says General Fund Transfers, and you'll see $1.5 million. That is a repayment of a loan to the General Fund from years ago that was paid back this year. So congratulations, we got the money back. And if you go up a couple lines up, you'll see interest from interfund loan. You'll see a $44,000 interest separate line item on top of that payment coming back. So you have a total revenue coming back of $4.1 million, and all your resources from your begin balance to your revenue streams from this year, you're at $7 million. And if you scroll down a little bit more, this is where the top is your revenue streams coming in. This section now is your expenditures. You have $2.3 million in expenditures, which will be your salaries and your operating expenses. And then you have your state pro rata there for the total of 2.5. You subtract your revenues of 7.5 from your expenditures, and you have a fund balance ending at a little over $5 million, which is a very solid fund. And you have 18 months in reserves, 18.3 months in reserves. We typically say that a healthy fund is anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So if you look at the bookend years, we're about 15, 15.8, 15.4. The 18.3 is indicative to what came in back from the loan repayment. So just a little bit outlier. I just want to explain that there. Any questions on the fund condition here? If not, we can go to the second document. Oh, this came up better than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be smaller. Okay. So the second document is a capture of, if you read top to bottom, it's broken down into two sections. You have your personal services, and then you have your OE&E, your operating expenses and equipment. So the top part, we have the salaries and wages and staff benefits. We had a budget of $1.5 million in that section, with an estimated spending of 1.2, almost 1.3, with a savings of almost $220,000. So pretty good spending of this money here. And as you drop down into your operating expenses, these are where you're going to have some of your costs that can be adjusted. If you look down through it, it's pretty clear that the spending on the operating expenses is in check and well within acceptable limits. If you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see a total. As we do the bottom line budget, we'll take the personal expenses, we'll take the operating expenses, and we tally them at the bottom. We have a $1.7 million budget for the operating expenses, coming in over a little over $1 million with the $663,000 savings in the operating expenses. You tally the personal services with the operating expenses. We had a $3.2 million budget. We estimate $2.3 million spent with a savings of $882,000, or 27%, almost 28% of your allocation. So pretty good use of the money and the funds as far as expenditures to the budget. And at this point, I don't see any issues with either the fund condition or with the the preliminary FM12 numbers closing out the year. These should not change much once we get the final numbers. It'll be pretty close to these numbers, but this is pretty indicative of the manner in which Mr. Ito and his board, his committee, and everybody has spent their money wisely, and they're obviously being fiscally responsible with the funds that they're charged, and they're good stewards with the money that they've been allocated. Any questions?
This is Dr. Jensen. Thank you, Paul, for presenting that. And we have been very lucky to have Mark as our executive now, so that we are much better we're better informed, I think, all the time, constantly, about our finances, because we have him there in his prior experience. From your recommendations, is there anything, we're healthy now, is there anything you would do looking forward? Anything that you would think we should be looking at now to prepare in the next couple of years?
No, everything looks pretty solid. The reversions that you're making this year are a little bit high because of what we went on this past year, but everything is in check and in line with what's been going on. We're a little bit more active with our reporting now that we're getting control of our fiscal reports. So, no, everything looks good, and I would just keep on going with what you have.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Claudia. I have a quick question. Can you maybe tell us a little more what's under the information technology budget? I see that there's a small decrease for the projections to year end. Wanted to see if maybe we're missing something there in terms of how we're leveraging technology.
Just the you're talking about the $4,000 down to the $3,000.
Yeah, and this is in thousands, right? Yeah, just in general, the information technology. What are we paying for there?
As far as the equipment, Mark, can you help with what you guys are purchasing under that category?
Yeah, so the information technology line isn't necessarily the IT equipment. That would fall under the equipment line. To be honest with you, I don't want to just guess. I think the information technology line is going to be fees we're paying for the IT stuff and for our toners and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I can get back to you with a rock solid.
Just pulled up the internet services. It's going to be the toner, so it's all your internet connect.
Yeah. Where does the breeze? Is that something that the board we're still something that's provided by the state? The breeze program and the training there.
Paul, do you want me to take over this, or you got it?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so yeah, we are still paying for breeze. The department, particularly the budget office, annually or even biannually at times, will give us updates on what our breeze costs are. They're going down. We're in the maintenance phase at this point for breeze, and that line item, I believe, falls under the CMP external. I believe it falls under. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's in there. But we are still paying for it. It's significantly less than what it was, and I can provide that in our next board meeting as well under my EO report.
Got it. And just
it does. Excuse me.
No, just final question. I mean, is it? I'm just wondering if we need to spend more to make it more efficient, or are you guys happy kind of with the service you're getting for where we're at?
Yeah, for right now, I think the service has improved. We don't really have any issues, any ongoing improvements to the system. We submit those requests to the departments, and we pay pro rata for any services we get from the department. And right now we're in the breeze maintenance phase, so I don't anticipate any costs going up. I know there's a certain amount set aside for changes to the system when we need them. So we can request any changes we'd like, and then we can figure out whether or not it falls into if it can be absorbed in the current breeze contract, or if the board would need to do a BCP in the future if we need something that can't.
Great. And I would just love to hear what those updates you are suggesting to them, just on the, for maybe for efficiency, for us to take a look at what's going on with the technology side of things.
Okay, sounds good.
Mark, on the travel, you have more projected this year than in the budget? Am I looking at?
Yeah, so these were the expenditures for last fiscal year, for fiscal year 1920. We're budgeted 14,000 for in-state travel. We spent looks like 20,216. We anticipate, and I know it's going to be significantly less than that with the travel restrictions due to COVID-19. So that was last year's expenditures before it got closed down, but it'll be less this year for sure.
Any other comments? No other comments? All right. So can we move on, because we don't have to vote on anything here, to 8, Executive Director's report.
Hi, this is Mark Ito again, Executive Director. In my report, it's not going to be too extensive this time, but I'm going to go over our licensing stats, our staffing, some COVID-19 updates, and some cures numbers. And then when I'm done with that, I will pass it on to Corey Sparks, my lead enforcement analyst, to give our enforcement report. So licensing, if you look at our first box there, I don't have last meeting's comparable numbers, but we do continue to grow. We have 12,436 licensees under the Osteopathic Medical Board's jurisdiction. And out of those, there are 9,887 practicing and residing in California. So we are still a growing profession. That's good. That's something to be proud of. And I look forward to continuing that increase in licensed population moving forward. So that's our licensing stats. So for our workload, Machiko, if you scroll down to the next table here, I have workload that shows the workload for fiscal year 18-19 and for fiscal year 19. What this table shows, which the prior tables didn't, was our postgraduate training license apps. So it shows our osteopathic physician and surgeon apps received and approved, and it also shows our postgraduate training licenses received. We're continuing to grow and get more applications. I know the top line, it says we got 999 DO applications received, 983 this year. The reduction of that 7 has to do with our PT, with our postgraduate training license applications becoming effective on January 1st. Typically, between the first and third year of residency, folks would be applying for their applications. Now, because of this, folks had to do their PTLs, and there was kind of a weird to it. So we did get an influx of postgraduate training license apps. I think it reduced some of our DO apps, but I think as a whole, we're growing. We have more applications coming in, and that's a good thing. It just shows that our profession is continuing to grow, which we want to see. We did get less renewals this year than last year. That just has to do with the renewal cycles. So we just have more folks that expire in the years that end in odd years. So that's why our renewals were a little down this year, and we anticipate they'll be back up this year, because the same folks have to renew every 2 years. So that's why those numbers look down. And then at the bottom of that table, it shows our fictitious name permits. So there's our numbers there. Those look like they're staying pretty equal to what they've been in the past. And the last thing is the number of days to approve a complete license application during the fiscal year 1920 fiscal year was 95 days. That's a little higher than we wanted it to be. Our our program measures state that we should be about 60 days. Once I saw that, I kind of sat down with my staff. I changed the license application process completely to make it more transparent and more efficient. So I kind of got in the trenches, kind of figured out what they were doing, worked with our department's solid unit. They were great. That's what we pay our pro rata for. They did a great job. They worked with me and they're still working with me. And we have it down to about 65 days now. So we've cut it down by about 30 days. And we want to get it well under that 60 days. And that's kind of my goal. I think it'll reduce phone calls, and more importantly, it'll show that we're giving great customer service to our applicants and licensees, because that's really what's important to us. So moving on to staffing, the board has 13.5 total authorized positions. The board currently has one vacant position, which is the AGPA, the Associate Governmental Program Analyst. The process is the enforcement workload associated with the postgraduate training license. We're in the process of advertising for this position and hope to have it filled within the next couple of months. So we're pretty much fully staffed. We just have one position, so we're going to focus on getting that filled and bringing in a great new staff to improve our culture in the office. So moving down, so COVID-19, some updates with COVID-19. I kind of went over some of this last board meeting. On March 9th of 2020, the governor issued Executive Order N3320. This order provided a stay-at-home order for the citizens of California, except as needed to maintain continuity of operations. At a very early stage, the board determined that all of our staff was essential, and we wanted them to be in the office, not all the time, but intermittently, just to make sure that the board's operational needs were met. I put together a telework schedule. So I have folks coming in. I always make sure there's not too many people in the office at the same time, and that we maintain the social distancing guidelines just to be safe to us and our applicants and licensees. And I think we've done a good job with that. There are still some improvements to make and some quirks and some lessons learned we've done with the COVID-19, but I feel like for the most part we've done a good job, and there's small hiccups we need to fix, but on a grand scale we've done an okay job. So that's that. So on March 30th of 2020, the governor issued Executive Order N3920. This order authorized the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs to waive any of the professional licensing requirements and amend scopes of practice in the BNP code and the regulations. So the three waivers I'm going to talk about today. The first one is it's Dca Waiver 20-53. It's the continuing education waiver. This waiver, it's for active licensees that expire between March 31st, 2020 and October 1st, 2020. They're temporarily exempt from completing or demonstrating compliance with any continuing education requirement in order to renew a license. And they must satisfy any of these renewal requirements within 6 months of the order unless further extended. This waiver, it rescinded the previous two CME waivers on March 31st and July 1st, just extended that date out to October 31st. I'm working closely with my licensing staff. We're keeping track of all these folks, and the Osteopathic Medical Board, we're a little unique with our CMEs in that we don't have a post-renewal audit. It's something I'm still working on. So we actually check every single CME when it comes in. So for all these folks where we are waiving their CMEs, we know that at the end of the order, 6 months from this order, which is going to be early next year, we're going to have to check all these CMEs. So my licensing staff is working diligently to get these folks renewed before their license expires, and at the same time check their CMEs to make sure that they have them, just to save some of that work on the back end. And they've done a great job with that, and it's something that I'm proud of for the board. So the next waiver is Dca Waiver 20-02. It's the reinstatement of licensure. It's for inactive licensees who are seeking to reactivate their license. They're temporarily exempt from completing and demonstrating compliance with any continuing education requirements. Additionally, these licensees do not need to pay a fee in order to reactivate their license. This license is valid for 6 months. So this is for our inactive licensees. This waiver, the spirit of this waiver was to get folks who are inactive back into the field to help combat the COVID-19 virus. And this is one of the waivers. We haven't seen too many of these, but we do have some that we need to keep track of. And we've been doing that so we can follow up when need be. Now, the last waiver is Dca Waiver 20-50. It's the postgraduate training license deadline. So individuals who are enrolled in an approved postgraduate training program in California on January 1st, 2020, they were required to obtain a postgraduate training license from the board by June 30th. That was the original waiver. This waiver has been extended, and this requirement is now extended to October 31st, 2020. My new, I don't want to say new, but she got promoted in our office. Dina, she is my postgraduate training license application analyst here, and she's done a great job, and we appreciate the extension, and we are pretty much caught up at this point. I don't want to say fully caught up, but we are well within this extension of getting these folks licensed. Okay, so moving on to cures, I just have some stats here. As of May 2020, there were 7,590 osteopathic physicians registered in the cure system. Osteopathic physicians ran 85,861 separate patient activity reports, while accessing the system 41,306 times. This just shows that our osteopathic physicians are using the cure system at a large amount, and they're doing a good job of that. So with that said, I will before I pass the baton over to Corey, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I had a question, Mark. I think you should be really proud of all the work you're doing. That's amazing that you were able to reduce the time period it takes to renew licenses. And you mentioned the post-renewal audits were something that we're thinking about. Just was wondering, what kinds of things would be involved. I think it would be a really good step in the right direction to make these decisions.
Yeah, just to share some information with you, Doctor. The post renewal audit is something we've been working on for far too long, and some of that falls on my shoulders as well. So I apologize. But we're doing regulations in the if we do a poke, because right now we look at every single CME at the time of renewal. So if you turn in your renewal and you pay for your license, there is that period of time where my staff has to go through and check every CME when they renew. But my vision with the post-renewal audit is that we're going to include an online aspect of it as well. And then when you renew, you don't need to turn your CMEs at that time. You can pay for your license, mark under penalty of perjury that you've completed your CMEs, and then your license can almost instantly be renewed. So I think that would be a good thing. It'll remove that barrier for licensure for the board, and it'll just make a much better situation for our licensees as well.
Thank
you. You're welcome.
So, Corey?
Do we have any public comment on that portion of the executive officer report? Okay, then hearing none, I guess Corey?
If you have any questions, I'm going to pause after each question if you have any questions regarding that area to cover. So this is going to cover this last fiscal year. For complaint intake, we had 614 cases or complaints received in the office. 17 of those complaints were convictions or criminal charges. We assigned 570 of those cases over to analysts, desk analysts, and the average aging during this period from intake to assignment to a desk analyst is 50 days. Pending cases at the end of this period was at 155 complaints. So that's pretty high in terms of, as you can see in the chart below, figure 1.1, our pending cases, which is the green line, started to increase during March to the end of June. And that is just indicative of a growing backlog. And Mark, alluded earlier that we're in the process of hiring a new analyst to help bring down that backlog. This chart also, figure 1.1, shows our received and assigned cases averaged about 50 a month during this whole period. It kind of went down a little bit at the end of May and June. Any questions about our intake? Okay, so moving on to all desk or internal investigations. We had a total of 571 cases assigned to our desk analysts, which we have 2. During that period, 537 desk cases were completed with an average aging day average of 93 days, which is roughly 3 months, which is really good for internal desk investigations. Getting these completed within 3 months on average is really good. Pending, we were at 193. So moving on to the next page, we can see basically on figure 2.1, just a graphic chart of all of these desk investigations, average around 50 cases, and pending cases average around 200. So that looks good. Hopefully, again, if we add another analyst, those pending cases, that case will drop down. Moving on to the middle of the page, look at field investigations, cases that are sent out to our sworn investigators. As you can see, at the end of June, we had 38 cases for this total past period that were assigned. 31 of those cases during this period were completed. The average day of field investigation was 320 days per case. And then pending at the end of this period, we had 55, not 54. That's a mistake. It should be 55 cases that are currently still out in the field investigation. Moving on towards the bottom, we can see that pie chart. This breaks down the complexity or the types of cases that the investigators are investigating. As you can see, 26% of those were prescription or excessive prescribing cases. 19% were unprofessional conduct. That's kind of a various different, like aiding and abetting, those kinds of cases. 3% were sexual misconduct, 3% were criminal, and 23% fraud. Usually that's typically some type of insurance investigation. Impairment was 1%, negligent or some kind of injury or harm was 10%, substance abuse was 13%. So that breaks out the types of cases that during the 31 cases that were completed during this period. Any questions about those? Okay, moving on to next page aging for desk and field investigations. Okay, this breaks out the aging for all investigations. That's both desk and field investigations. So what we have is for 90 days, 334 cases were completed. Between 6 months, 110 cases were completed. 40 cases were completed between 6 months and a year. 16 cases were completed between 1 and 2 years. 23 cases were completed 2 to 3 years. So we can see how that breaks out in the pie chart below, which basically indicates that 84% of these investigations were completed within 6 months and 92 were completed within a year. I think that's very good. I think that keeps us within our targets. Any questions about those desk and field investigation aging?
So during the pandemic didn't have any effect on our performance on the investigation.
No, I don't think so. I think it's kind of just, I think it's been a little bit slow. The only thing that's really impacted COVID would be our undercover investigations. And currently right now, I think we've got about four or five cases out in the field that have been put on hold because they can't do an undercover. That's all I'm aware of right now.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. Moving on to enforcement actions. These are cases that we've initiated over to the Department of Justice. We initiated 16 cases during this period. 14 accusations were filed. During this period, we had 10 final disciplinary orders that we filed and we either put on probation or we surrendered. One case was withdrawn. 2 cases were closed without a disciplinary action. We had 4 citations and we had 1 suspension order. I believe that was a PC-23 regarding a criminal activity. PC-23 is when if we have a doctor who is a threat to the public, usually there's a conviction or they have to be arraigned in court. We send an attorney down to the court and they can get we call it PC-23. It's a penal code 23. It allows us to go in and intervene and tell a judge, hey, we would like to have his license suspended or restricted based upon his criminal action. So that's what has occurred. We had 1 of those during this period. AG cases pending at this time, we have 28. 28 cases currently right now that the AG is working on. And moving on to the next page, we can look at, of the 10 cases that were finalized, we can look at their aging. This is the aging matrix for those cases. 3 of those cases took 6 months to a year to complete from inception, from the date we got it to the time it was closed at the AG's office. 1 case took 1 to 2 years, took 2 to 3 years. 4 cases took 3 to 4 years, and 1 case took 4 years. So, and then pie chart below just breaks out those in a percentage, as you can see. And so I think it's good if we got 3 cases within 6 months to 1 year. That's really good. Most cases are usually within 2 to 3 years, which or 4 years, which we see below. So that's a pretty good number. But I will say that the total amount that we have got this past 12 months is low. Typically, we can get about our high finalized cases have been up to about 20. So we're down to 10, and I don't know if that is from COVID or the slowdown or what that is, but it is a little bit of a lower number in terms of case discipline. Going down to the bottom of the page, we can see the breakout of those 10 disciplinary actions and what they represent. 5 of those were probation cases. 1 case was a revocation. 2 are surrender cases. We had 2 reprimands. We had 1 which was a pre-public letter of reprimand. That means that we agreed with the respondent to a public letter of reprimand prior to sending that to the AG's case. So we got a reprimand without going to the AG and spending that money. So the case probably would have just got a public letter of reprimand at the AG anyway. So it was just a way of saving money and agreeing and getting that case resolved. Any questions on that? Okay, let's move on to the next page. This is basically showing our performance measures within our intake and our investigations and our AG. The only thing I'll comment about these performance measures is that everything looks good except for our intake. Our intake is we're not meeting the target. Our target is 30 days from the date that the case is stamped and put into to our office, the stamp date or the intake date, to the time we assign that case to an analyst. So, and this has become somewhat of an issue because this is part of that backlog problem that I alluded to earlier. And this is the reason why we need another analyst to come in and take on our intake or complaint investigations. So once we do that, that number should come down to our target of 30 days. So as we can see in our all investigation, we can see that we're meeting our target there very clearly, which is the middle one. And then below that one, we can see these are the AG cases, which we really don't have any control over that. Once we send that out to the AG, the aging of that's dependent upon negotiations. It depends upon how willing the respondent wants to settle the case. So, but those cases are pretty good. The one looks really bad, I think, in September, October. There's a couple of cases there that went for quite some time. Once those cases go to the AG and the accusation is filed, we no longer have to worry about the statute of limitations. So once the accusation is filed, then we can, those cases can kind of go on for a little bit longer. But prior to that, we have to keep that within 3 years. Otherwise, we lose the statute. Any questions about that? Okay, moving on to probation. Currently, we have 36 probation cases, of which 9 cases are told. And during this period, 8 probationary cases were closed, 5 cases were opened. The total cost recovery ordered is currently $444,911.49. As of September 7th, $262,149.81 have been paid or recovered, leaving a balance of $182,761.68. So we've got pretty much, over half of that recovered. So, which is good. And I think that's it. Any questions regarding our enforcement report? No? Okay. Thank you very much, board. Have a good one.
Sorry. Thank you. That was a really good report. I do have a quick question, though.
Sure.
Since most of these clinics and hospitals, not hospitals, clinics have been shut down, we're seeing less cases, correct?
I mean, less complaints. I think our complaint total are pretty much the same. I don't think we're seeing I suspected we'd see less.
Right.
But that's not true. So it's pretty much the same in terms of our level. We did see we've had a lot of, not a lot of complaints, but we did see complaints regarding COVID-19 related issues. Okay. Some doctors, some of the complaints just were more opinions. Doctors said this about, particular issues of COVID that weren't, congruent with nature. And that's just opinion. We can't really, really investigate something of that nature. And we've had doctors open clinics specifically to test for COVID-19. We have looked into those particular doctors, and the counties have looked into those doctors, and they have found for the most part those doctors are in compliance. But they did, there were maybe some communication issues or some advertising issues that needed to be clarified. But for the most part, those doctors were in compliance. So, but we haven't had any violations of anything regarding to COVID.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or?
Yes, I had a question. Just to refresh my memory, when we're looking at possible probation for an individual, there's cost recovery included in that possible probation order. Is the board allowed to change any of those amounts for applicants? Do you know?
Oh, for applicants?
If somebody is looking to have their license reinstated and the board is going to place them on some type of probation, typically I've seen that sometimes there's cost recovery associated with that. And I'm just curious if there was a petitioner or an applicant that asked, can the board please lower my costs? Can they reduce the amount? Does the board have the power to do that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a settlement, if you're settling the case, if it's a reinstatement of someone who we revoked prior to, say we investigate, Dr. Smith, and he's revoked, then that investigation and AG costs amounted to $20,000 and revoke him. 3 years later, he comes back, he petitions for reinstatement. We're going to say, hey, there was a $20,000 cost in that investigation, and we're going to add that to your, if we're going to reinstate you and put you back on probation, this is a $20,000 cost there. Now we have the discretion to negotiate that down if we want. That's up to the board at that particular time when you issue, because it's your authority, the board, to reinstate him. So you can put anything in that order that you want, if he's going to want reinstatement. So that would be up to the board. But in typical probation cases where cost recovery is a negotiable term. So it's something that if we want to get somebody, say he has a cost recovery of $30,000, and his attorney's saying, we want him on 5 years, and his attorney's saying, no, 3 years. What we'll do is we'll say, well, hey, we want him 5 years, but we'll bring his cost recovery down so that he'll take the 5 years. Sometimes we'll use these terms in the settlement to negotiate what we want. So we can do that. Now, if it goes to hearing with the judge, both parties put their information to the judge, and the judge makes the decision. How much cost recovery is going to be, what the terms and conditions. So that's the risk of going to a hearing, that, we may get what we want, we may not get a very good deal. So.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That clarifies my question. Thank you for it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to tab 8, agenda items for next meeting.
So far on the agenda, we have the guideline recommendations. So we're putting those on. Is there anything else that we want added?
Machka, we had the CME renewal cycle clarification from Dr. Patel.
Anything else? No? So we have 2 items.
Yeah.
Of course, I'll solicit any additions prior to the next meeting, but I'll make sure these are on there. So we can move on to future meeting dates.
Our next meeting, we voted already, didn't we, last?
We did. So as it stands, we have January 14th. The January meetings are typically in Sacramento. I know at the last meeting, in speaking with Nick, there was great reception of us attending the OPSC meeting. However, I don't know how travel will be. So I'm assuming it'll be a Zoom meeting unless things change between now and then. And then the same with the May 13th meeting. Anything changes, we can change the location, but I'm just assuming everything is Zoom or WebEx, I'm sorry, at this point.
Okay. So is that it? Any other comments or do we need to vote on the dates, or we don't, right?
No, not unless anybody's schedule is changed where it will not permit them to attend the meeting, even though it's on WebEx. The only other thing that you can do at this point is if you want to add another meeting for September, October, you can. That way we can post it. If not, then we'll just go ahead and post these two meetings on the website and make changes accordingly in terms of the location.
So with this being said, is the meeting adjourned?
You say it is.
This is the, so I thank you guys for being patient with me. I was prepared but not prepared. I forgot I had a doctor's appointment today. So we want to close this meeting and thank the students first for joining and any other public members who came in to join this meeting. So I want to thank you for being here. And then I motion to adjourn the meeting. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second that.
Okay. So with that being said, the meeting has been adjourned. We good?
All right. It was very nice seeing everyone. Bye.
You as well.
There.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day.
Everyone.